So very early in my career, I started to see how stress shape the way we are. I knew from my study that stress shaped the way I think. But the way I become, who I become, that can be interesting. And really early in my career, I said, can children mount a physiological stress response when they are living in adverse condition? We didn't know that. We knew that adults could, but perhaps children can't. So I decided to study 2 environmental adverse factors based on the literature. I don't have the time to go into the rationale. The first one is poverty. And we know that there is a gradient between health and socioeconomic status. So the richer you are, the better you are mentally and physically. So poverty, and another one that has been studied is maternal depression. Okay? So I decided to study children as a function of both factors. So we studied at the time, that was in 2000, about 410 children from 6 to 16 years of age. We measured salivary cortisol levels. So now we measure the cortisol in saliva. And I always do as a joke say, but it's a true story, it's extremely easy to ask a 6-year-old to spit. The problem is to ask them to stop. Right? So we were doing this in classrooms. It was crazy. I will always remember this study. You spit in the little tube, not on the wall. And so we did that, and we measured many, many other things. I wanted to see, when you're poor, do you produce more stress hormones? Okay? So, and before I also, while I was with the kids, I said, do they know what stress is? I'm very interested in the public definition of stress. So for the adults, it's time pressure. But can children know what stress is? Well, these are 5th grade people, kids, so they know what stress is, and they have all these. And we have this on the website. I really like to have their drawings. And I think there are gender gap ratio, the ratio in the drawings, but that's another story. So can poverty change the way you see the world? Well, what we found, and that was quite amazing, as early as age 6, rich kids, thank you, produce less stress hormones than poor kids. So this is 6, 8, 10 years old, 12, 14, 16. This is elementary school grade 1, 3, 5. And this is high school grade 1, 3, 5. It's a cross-sectional study, not a longitudinal. This is school transition. This is when kids are at the 6th grade, so they are the oldest of the school. Nothing is new, nothing is unpredictable. I have control. This is when they go to high school. Do you remember your first year in high school? I do. It's new, it's unpredictable, you don't have control, it's threatening for your ego. What we found is that this difference between poor and rich totally disappears at the time of school transition because the rich get stressed. Okay? So I'll come back to that. But the poverty can increase your stress hormone levels. The next thing we did, we called all the moms of these kids. Why not the dads? And that's a problem in research. Why not the dads? Because one day I got upset with a scientist. I said, why is it that you always have things with moms? You know, dad, the problem we have is that males do not answer the phone when we call them, and they just give us the wife. So this is why I only have data on mothers. And I think that's another problem in the literature. So guys, when you grow up and you have kids, can you answer research, please, so that we can have data? So we called the mom and to see whether poor moms would be more depressed, as they show in epidemiological study. For sure they do. The next thing we did a correlation to see whether depression in the mom is correlated with her own child stress hormone levels, because you become the stressor. And we found a significant positive correlation. So the more mom is depressed and stressed, not clinically depressed, depressive symptomatology, the more her own child produces stress hormone. So this is spillover effects of parental stress. When I hear about partner violence, I cannot prevent myself from thinking about these spillover effects on the children. Oh, that was very much fun. So I'm having fun, and I'm not talking about sex yet. And then I get 2002 in a meeting in Arizona, great place, on early adversity in the brain. And we know everything. And it's cool. It's Bruce McEwen is there, Judge Cool, and Michael Mead. We're so good. And it's basically an animal research congress meeting. Adversity and licking and grooming and blah, 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 everything that. And I realized, and I never knew that. I never realized that. All of the studies were done in males. And I raised my hand, like, you crazy people. You have a gender gap ratio for females, and then you're talking to me about rat model as a model of depression, and you only have males. And I really, really got upset because I felt as if someone had done something wrong to me because I never figured that out first. I went back into my room and I did as I did as a good neuropsychology student when I did my kid study. I looked for a gender difference in my ANOVA, wishing that there is none as a main effect. And then there was no gender difference, so I collapse. And I do an ANOVA. We all do this. I learned that in psychology. I'm sure you did as well. And I said, this is crazy. So I went back into my room, never went back to the meeting, went back into the database, split the database in girls and boys, and found out that the spillover effects of maternal stress on kids is only true in girls, not in boys. And I have no idea what it means. But then I said, okay, that's stupid. We have to take this into account. And from that point, I decided that I would never think that a male is like a woman in terms of stress, and more so in children and child development and exposure to early adversity. More and more we see this in stress research. Girls seem to be extremely sensitive to maternal factors in terms of stress response. Boys to dad factors. Okay? So I went back to that. I said, okay, girls have a higher ratio. And I decided to study sex factor as well. And I looked at the literature on depression and what is another common denominator beside early adversity. And I got into something quite interesting, is early age at menarche. And this is known, been shown. Girls who will become depressed get their menstruation much earlier, 8, 9. Okay? And in terms of evolutionary biology, is very sexy. Why? Because the other factor that leads to an early age at menarche is exposure to early adversity. Why would that be? Because the brain is your best friend. So the brain tells you, said, my God, you're living in a very dangerous place. Early exposure to adversity. You should be able to have kids very soon because you're going to die soon. So if I want to ensure survival of the species, you should become fertile quite fast. That's the idea, okay? And early age at menarche is related to depression. Now, the model, the biological model, no one knows why. I have an idea. There are a lot of estrogen receptors in the frontal lobe. The frontal lobe is involved in many things, emotional regulation. The frontal lobe does not develop at the same rate as other brain structures. It is fully developed in girls at 11.1 years of age and at 12.2 years of age in boys. Now, if you overshoot estrogen to a brain that is not fully developed in terms of frontal lobe development, which this is where the receptors are, there might be some problems there. So there are some biological models that are starting to get there. And it's funny because estrogen may be protective in terms of other stuff, but the model in depression is very, very different. But never forget the brain development time that we have to take into account. So the literature, I'm not going to go through this because lunch is coming, but that's basically what I said. Early age at menarche. Now, how can I do the study? Remember this study where we tested 406 kids, and we found that at the time of school transition, they have high court everyone, could not be due to puberty, and we thought it was due to nuts. Because when you are here, it's not novel, it's not unpredictable, you have the control when you get here. And it's usually at the time of school transition that depressive symptomatology, conduct disorder, suicidal ideation will start to appear in the kids. Many parents and teachers will say it's related to puberty, but us, we said, yeah, but what if you had a vulnerability factor related to stress? And this is the time I decided to start doing things about what I was finding because stupid to find and not doing anything. So we decided to develop a program. We are not expert in intervention and we know about that, but we do what the best we can do. It took us 2 years to develop the program, which is called De-Stress for Success program. We developed it with teachers, with school counselors, with teenagers, with us. So it took a long time. But the De-Stress for Success program is a program where we go into the schools, 5 visits to the school. We teach the kids everything we know about stress. When they get out of there, they know what nuts is, and they know how to deconstruct the situation, etc., so that when they are at high school 1, they can deal with the situation. So we have a lot of, so in order to see if the program was working, I got a grant to measure its efficacy and measured cortisol before and after the program. And while I was there, I measured depression as well. And I measured many things. And I measured age at Menarche because I was there. Okay? So the data I will show you are from the program. I cannot tell you, yes, the program works, but I don't have all the data because we have a huge data set. We have measured cortisol 6 times in the years, depression 4 times in the year. So it's a huge, huge database. But I'll talk to you about the data on age at Menarche. So we tested 504 kids, girls and boys, from two private schools. So this is the age at Menarche is the work of Leanne. We had 2 schools. All were in grade 7. So all the data I'll show you is grade 7, which is high school 1. We have a school where grade 6 was in the same school, but it's too complicated for now.